The goddess Hera was furious since she had found out that the goddess Leto was pregnant from her husband Zeus. Enraged, the goddess then forbids Leto to give birth in any place where the land was steady. Not a single land sheltered the pregnant goddess, and so she wandered for a long time, with labor pains, without actually finding a place that could lodge her. That was when she found the floating island of Delos, and since this island was not attached to the earth, it was not subject to the prohibition of the Queen of Gods. There, Leto was able to deliver, and, much to her surprise, she gave birth to not only one, but to 2 children. The first one to be born was Artemis, and Apollo came right after. Apollo, handsome and blonde, was the perfect depiction of the sun, whereas Artemis had pale skin and black hair, and resembled the moon with her dark hair symbolizing the night around her. Confronted with the news of the birth of Leto's children, the goddess Hera loses her temper and decides to send the serpent Python to persecute and devour the newborn children. The goddess Leto starts to roam around the world, running away from the serpent. Once, she and her sons, who were still babies, were thirsty and found a tiny lagoon in their path. At the edge, there were some rude peasants who, yelling, prohibited the goddess and her sons to drink water from it. To prevent her from doing it, the peasants scrambled to the bottom of the lagoon with their feet so that the mud will become one with the water, hampering its consumption. Choleric, Leto turns the peasants into frogs and condemns them to spend the rest of their lives crying around the lagoon. The young gods grew in size, and Zeus gave them extremely powerful bows, crafted for them by Hephaestus. Artemis falls in love with the offering and would dedicate her life to hunting, becoming the goddess of the hunt. Apollo, with the powerful bow in his hands, can only think about one thing: bringing vengeance upon the serpent that tormented his mother for such a long time. Zeus informs his son of the place where the den of the monster is, and he goes after to kill it. The beast was living in a cave near Mount Parnassus. Apollo instigates the serpent to leave its hiding spot. Python aggressively leaves its den, wanting to devour its opponent. Apollo's arrows rebounded against the rough scales that protected the serpent. The god tries to look for a weak point in the beast while dodging its dangerous lunges. Confident, the youngster launches 3 arrows at once with his bow. One hits Python's eye, the other at the bosom of the beast, which was covered by thinner scales, thus hitting the heart. And the last one pierces the serpent's mouth and takes its last breath. Python is dead, and on the top of its corpse, Apollo declares that a sacred temple in his honor will be built. That spot will later be known as the Oracle of Delphi.
Apollo, using his bow, had just killed the terrifying serpent Python. The god proudly paraded himself, carrying his bow and arrows, a weapon that would become one of his symbols. The archer god crossed paths with Eros, the god of love, as he was practicing his accuracy. Despite his childish figure, he had an elegant and noble posture with the bow. Feeling jealous after seeing the god-child using the arc so majestically, Apollo decided to mess with Eros' pride. "Hey boy, what do you think you're doing, handling such a noble instrument with that carelessness? Don't you know that now, all over the world, people refer to the arc as Apollo's weapon, because I used it to defeat the most dreadful of monsters?" Eros didn't pay attention to his provocations. He turned his back to Apollo and started to walk away, but the solar god kept taunting him. "That's right, go away. With that poor accuracy of yours, you will never do a feat like mine." That last of Apollo's insult extrapolated the patience of the god of love, who quickly faced him, picking one of his golden arrows and firing his weapon, hitting the heart of the god Apollo, who fell to his knees. Eros had never crushed any big monster, but he had just put one of the most powerful gods on his knees. His arrow didn't really hurt him physically, but now, the god Apollo was under the absolute influence of love. The solar god spotted a beautiful nymph. Her name was Daphne, Peneus' daughter, a river god. Apollo immediately fell in love with her. But Eros had yet to finish his lesson. He then hit Daphne's heart with a lead arrow, making her feel disgust with Apollo. The god of light tried to get close to the nymph, who promptly moved away from him. "Why are you running away from me? Can't you see I'm God Apollo, god of beauty, of music and prophecy?" Apollo proudly said.
Your figure makes me sick. Don't get any closer. I prefer to give myself to one of those nauseating satyrs.
However, Apollo couldn't resist the powers of passion and tried to get closer to the nymph. She tried to run away, but Apollo kept chasing her. When the god was about to catch her, the nymph ran into the waters of her father's river, Peneus, the god river, who decided to help his daughter. Right when Apollo grabbed her, Daphne started to transform herself into a tree. Apollo, desolated, kissed the tree, and when he tried to touch the nymph's hair, he was left with laurel leaves in his hands. Daphne had been transformed into a laurel. Already resigned, Apollo said, "I was denied the chance to love her, but from now on, you will be my sacred plant. From your leaves I'll make a laurel wreath, which I'll wear, and I'll allow it to be worn by those who are living a moment of triumph." And from that day forward, the laurel wreath became a symbol of glory. Hyacinth was a young man of great beauty. His beauty was so immense that he even attracted two deities. One of them was Apollo, the god of music and prophecies. The other was Zephyrus, also known as the West Wind. Hyacinth was amused by Zephyrus. He flied across the sky alongside the god, piercing the clouds. With Apollo, the youngster rejoiced with the songs played by the brilliant god. The boy and the god became quite intimate. Hyacinth spent his days beside the god of music, doing all sorts of things. Realizing that he had been left out, Zephyrus started to nurture a great grief in his heart. One day, Apollo and Hyacinth decided to throw the discus. After preparing himself to throw it, Apollo launched the disc with incredible strength. The disc reached a stunning height. Hyacinth was ready to catch it, which descended at high speed. But the jealous Zephyrus blew the disc away, suddenly changing its trajectory. The disc fell to the ground, and after the rebound, hit Hyacinth's head with violence. Apollo ran to rescue the boy, whom he treasured so much. The god tried to use his powers to save Hyacinth's life, but not even the mighty Apollo could change Hyacinth's fate, traced by the Moirai. The beautiful boy died in Apollo's arms. Beautiful flowers start to sprout where the hyacinth's blood drops fell. Apollo felt guilty for ending Hyacinth's life at the peak of his youth, and in tribute to his friend, the god wrote his most beautiful songs, which were also the saddest and most melancholic. But with the arrival of spring, the god rejoiced, because the beautiful flowers born of the young's blood reappeared, and these came to be known by the name of Hyacinth.
Pan, the god of the woods, had always been a divinity neglected by his peers. Nonetheless, after inventing the pan flute, his musical talent was about to flourish, and the god began to be followed and respected wherever he was. Pan used to wander through the woods and fields with his new friend, King Midas. The latter was known for his ability to transform into gold everything he touched, but his talent proved to be a true curse. However, after having his golden touch removed by Dionysus, Midas started to repudiate the vile metal and lived a simple life in the woods. He met Pan there, and both became great friends. The ego of the god of the woods started to grow. With each praise he got for those who listened to his songs, Pan started to believe that he was the greatest musician who had ever lived, and bragged about it. "Even Apollo's lyre is obscured by the magnificent sound of my flute. Since he is so incredible, why doesn't he challenge me to a musical duel?" "My friend, posing such a challenge to Apollo is not wise. After all, he is the god of music." "Which side are you on?" "You know your friends. I support you." Pan's challenge reached the ears of Apollo, who promptly accepted it and departed to the location where the clash was scheduled to take place. "So are you the one who has been spreading rumors that you can defeat the god of music in a duel?" The god of music, the sun god, the god of philosophy? You have accumulated many roles, but I will unburden you from one of those. You would not even be able to defeat Orpheus, my mortal son, let alone the great Apollo. The gods, nymphs, and other creatures of the forest gathered to listen to what would be the greatest musical clash ever. Pan grabbed his flute and began his performance. His ability was remarkable. The melody thrilled all of those who heard him. The god of the woods ended his music and was congratulated with a standing ovation. He would hardly be defeated. But the god Apollo was not impressed and, after tuning his lyre, started to perform his music. The chords of the god were beautiful. The harmony was an absolute. No other sound could be more divine. The gods yelled, "Bravo!" The eyes of the nymphs dropped tears of emotion. His victory appeared obvious. The Olympians indicated Apollo as the winner. The nymphs and fauns, despite having enjoyed both of them, also chose the sun god. It was time for Midas to give his victor. He looked at his friend, and he uttered his voting. Today, Apollo has moved everyone to his music, but Pan's flute was nothing less than perfect. So, I declare Pan as the superior one. Midas knew that Apollo had already won the contest, and so he decided to cast a vote of consolation to his friend. But he did not expect Apollo's reaction, who wanted to humiliate Pan with a unanimous win. The god approached Midas and said, "You appear to be interested in music, but I believe your ears do not seem to help you. But I can solve that." Apollo replaced the ears of Midas with donkey ears. There you go. With these brand new ears, anyone will recognize you as the great music critic you are.